Hey, grade 7s and 8s. So this week what we're going to do for our video is we're going to build on what we know about water. So we learned last week or 2 weeks ago that water is a chemical with hydrogen and oxygen. It exists in solid, liquid, and gas all over the planet. Last week we focused on the water cycle and how water evaporates from standing water, turns into clouds as it condenses and cools and falls back to Earth as precipitation. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to look at how do we get water as humans? We need water every day and we need clean water. And so I'm standing here with the time capsule of Guelph behind me. This land right here where I'm standing is where the first house in Guelph was built. When John Galt came here with the Canada Company back in the 1800s, this whole area was all just forest. Everything looked different. And what he had to do with his friends is decide, okay, we're going to build a city, and they chose this place. Right over there where the bridge is where they cut down the first tree. And that line right there, that train bridge, is part of the main corridor for trains in this area in the 1800s. It was called the Grand Trunk Railway. And John Galt said, this is where I'm building my city. Now the reason why he chose this spot is if you come over here, there's a big thing of water. And you gotta have water where you're gonna build cities. This is the Speed River. And John Galt said, okay, I'm gonna need this water. What does he need water for? Well, the people moving here need water for drinking, and they need water for putting their garbage in, and they need water for getting rid of their waste. And so this river was our main source of water. Now we use the water for other things other than just drinking and putting our toilets in. Let's go see where else, or let's go see another place where we use water. One of the oldest bridges in Guelph. Of course, it's been rebuilt. This is the Nieve Street Bridge. It got rebuilt. The old first bridges would have been made out of wood. But if you look across the river, you can see a couple of things. You can see those apartments over there used to be a factory. And if you look right at the water line where the bridge hits the wall, you can see a pipe flowing out into the river. Humans put their water into rivers and lakes all the time, and that affects the water quality. So you got a factory making goods, and you got water flowing into the river that is less than clean. So what we need to do as a society is find a way, where can we find clean drinking water that's not going to make us sick? Remember Diode? Well, there used to be a big building here. They've just torn it down. I don't know what they're going to build, but look, we found water. When you were a kid and you dug at the beach and you made a sandcastle, you would have noticed that if you dug down, water would start flowing in. Well, this is like a digger is a big kid digging at the beach. Oh, look, you can also see hydraulic pistons on the digger arm. But what's happened here is they've dug a hole and water starts flowing in. You can see that there are hoses in there. They're trying to suck the water out. This is groundwater. It's pretty surface level groundwater. That's a local water table. If you dug down that far in most areas around here, you'd find water. We're really close to the river though. That'll be about the level of the river. This is a source of water. It's not great water. This is shallow groundwater. You can look at it, it doesn't look delicious, but if you drill a hole down into the ground, you will find eventually just about anywhere you are, you're gonna get water. It's called a well. Now the first wells in Guelph would have been more like these wells. They would have been shallow water wells. And it would have been like an old-timey well where you had dipped a bucket down and pulled it up. Today, Guelph uses much deeper wells. If you dig down even deeper, you'll hit an aquitard. Remember, an aquitard's a layer of rock that doesn't let water through. And you go down below that and you get into another deeper aquifer under Guelph. And the water has been down there for hundreds of thousands of years collecting. Before the water can get down to the aquifers under Guelph, it needs to filter through all this dirt and sand and clay, and that actually cleans the water. And then when the water gets down to our aquifer, it's pretty clean. Guelph has 21 major municipal wells throughout the city, and we pump water out from deep underground. But I don't want you thinking, though, aquifer is like an underground cave with Gollum in it or something. An aquifer is just a body of rock. It could be gravel, it could be sand, it could be limestone or dolostone. A body of rock that can hold a lot of liquid water. So this is a shallow example of some groundwater. The water under Guelph is, I think, about 50 meters underneath the city. It's a long way down. So where do we get our water from? Well, this is the Aramosa River. I'm up just north of Arkell. The river flows from here and actually flows right by the boathouse and all the way down past John McCrae. On the other side of the river are the Arkell Spring Grounds. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, people found lots of freshwater springs where groundwater was coming out of the ground on the south side of the river. What we did in the early 1900s was built huge wooden pipes, some of which we still use today, and they collect the water from these springs and they run them down toward Guelph. Almost half of our water comes from wells along the Arkell Spring Grounds. Now, it's really important that we maintain the land as forest or fields, because when it rains, that's how we recharge the groundwater. Remember the water cycle. If you don't have precipitation, then you can't have water getting into your groundwater. And if you're constantly pumping water out for people's showers and washing machines and bikes and toilets and washing their cars, bikes, I meant washing bikes, then you're not going to be able to recharge your aquifer. So how do we get our water? Well, we dig wells, deep wells, down into the Annabelle Aquifer, which is a huge aquifer underneath our city. And we use water from those 21 wells and we pump it up into water towers. Now, those water towers are designed to get the water up high so that all of our showers and toilets and taps have pressure. As long as the water tower is higher than your tap, you'll get water pressure. And the greater the difference between the top of the water tower and your tap, the greater the water pressure. That's why your water pressure is usually really good in the basement and not so good up top. Down the middle of each street runs a large pipe. It's called the water main. And the water main carries water down the middle of every street under the ground from the water towers, and each house has one pipe branching off into it. This pipe will come out in your basement. Then from there, it branches into all the taps in your house. If you go back to the first video I showed you on water, I show you what it looks like in my house. Now, how we use the water that we get from the ground is we use it for drinking and in our toilets and for washing our clothes. The number one usage for water in houses, out of everything, is not our drinking water. It's actually our showers and baths. The second largest usage of water in Canadian homes is from our toilets. Drinking water actually isn't that much water. If you want to preserve water, cut back on your showers. Now, before we can use water from the wells, we have to treat it. There are a couple of ways we can treat it. Guelph is lucky. We don't need to filter our water. The ground filters it for us, and the water that comes out of the aquifer is crystal clear. What we do have to do, though, is make sure that no microbes live in it. If you look out on the river here, there are lots of little animals that use the water. And there could be bacteria in the water in the pipes. It probably won't be down in the aquifer, but it is possible that bacteria gets into the water tower, into the water pipes. And to make sure that that doesn't get into us, we treat our water with a chemical called chlorine. We use very low doses of it, but it's enough that it will kill any living thing in the water. We can also use ultraviolet radiation. UV radiation destroys the DNA of any microbes that are in the water, so that if they do get into us, they can't replicate. Guelph has some of the best tap water in the country. I'm not joking. It's incredibly clean, it's incredibly healthy, and it's incredibly clear. We have to, as citizens of Guelph, make sure that we preserve it. If you want to learn more about water, the City of Guelph has some great web pages on where our water comes from. There's also a group called I think it's the Wellington Water Watchers. And they're a group that is dedicated to protecting Guelph's groundwater resources. Also, if you want to get out for a great hike, this is the Smith property trail out off Watson Road. Talk to your parents. It's a lovely place.